There is a plugin out there called Soothe by Oak Sound that so many people highly recommend, myself included. It did something that no other plugin at the time did, which was go in and surgically remove harshness out of the top end. Long story short, this plugin was the cheat code to fixing top end harshness. However, because there was so much hype over this plugin, I feel like people are abusing it and it's turning into a problem for music. So in this video, I want to show you what the problems are with using tools like Soothe or other high-end harshness removers and what you need to do to make sure you're not destroying your music. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to dial in these types of plugins, and you're going to learn exactly what to listen for to avoid these nasty artifacts that really just suck the life out of your music. And if you need some extra help dialing in the top end or controlling the different instruments in your songs, I have a free link to download my rock and metal mixing cheat sheet. There is a link in the description. This song is by a band called Eden Rose. It's called Stay With You. Sounds a little something like this. So, big rock ballad, right? Perfect song for me to showcase what we need to watch out for when we're using any type of deharshing plugin or resonance suppressor type plugins. So if we listen to just the drums, sounding pretty awesome right out the gate. The problem that a lot of people have with these types of plugins where there's a lot of hype built up around them, they just assume that they always are going to need it on their drums, for example, right? We talk about ringy cymbals in rock and metal production all the time. Normally, the solution is just kind of take an EQ and notch out anything that's really annoying, leave everything else, don't really worry about it. But what people will do is they'll just bake in a template with Soothe like on the drums at all times. You don't always need it on the drums. Let me show you why. Let's go to our cymbal bus, for example. Sounds like this. So you might hear that and you're like, oh man, it's so sizzly and so harsh. Let's put Soothe on it because that's going to fix it. It's going to pull all the high-end harshness out. So let's go and just load up a drum preset. How about cymbal smooth? That's what we want. Okay, and let's listen to what it's doing. We bypass it. Little hard to hear. Let's push it into the plugin more. So at this point, you might be thinking like, wow, it actually sounds so much smoother, right? Without it. With it. Yes, it does sound like a lot of the top end frequencies have been like smashed out. But what it also feels like to me is that this cymbal feels like it has a lisp now. It's not even a physical thing a cymbal can do. This does not exist in reality, this sound. Instead of just taking your volume knob on your cymbal bus and lowering it down, right, to make the high frequencies a little bit less obvious or less bright in the mix, people will often lean on tools like Soothe to just do this very strange processing. So if we listen to the delta of the signal, that's telling us what we're removing from the cymbals. It's a lot of this weird, wishy, kind of washy, like fishy sounds, in my opinion. And what this does that I really don't like is that it takes the microdynamics out of the cymbals. What I mean by that is there's a texture to a cymbal. It sounds like this. If you've ever sat behind a drum kit, that is a familiar sound. If you go and do this processing where it's finding all the resonant frequencies and pulling them out in certain bands, number one, you're going to be introducing a ton of these weird artifacts into the sound of the cymbals. And two, it creates a weird artificial sound that doesn't sound like a cymbal anymore. It sounds like white noise. Right? It's very quickly turning this signal into white noise. So let's listen to what it sounds like when you start really sucking out these frequencies. And yes, that is a cowbell in there. I'll turn the cowbell off for you guys. Cowbells are always distracting. All right, now listen to the cymbals. So when we're biting into the signal, it's softening the cymbals and taking the groove away as well, right? This is a dynamic thing. It's actively attenuating different bands and frequencies. So we lose some of the groove that's there from the drummer, right? Listen to how the beat doesn't feel as dynamic and as powerful anymore when we start pushing this up. It just feels like white noise and like cottony weird stuff that's just coexisting and just kind of hissing the entire time. We gotta fix that. The first thing I recommend is let's just not use Soothe. But if we have to, we can bring it back, okay? If we hit play and we feel like the cymbals are harsh, turn them down. Especially those hi-hats might be a little bit too groovy. Right? Doesn't that feel like we have Soothe on it? It takes the harshness away and it's maintaining the groove. There's texture to the cymbals still. All we did was turn the volume down in this one spot using some automation. Let's say there's a really nasty frequency in there. What I recommend doing is then just trying some very general broad EQ. This is much more musical. It doesn't kind of fit to the shape of the hi-hats. It's not going to introduce really unnatural artifacts. It's just going to do a little bit of EQing. Like, that's pretty annoying. Let's just pull a little bit of that out. Just a little bit softer and definitely not taking any of the tone or texture away from those cymbals. All right, let's throw it on something like bass this time. Let's check out what we got going on for the bass guitar tone. Sounding awesome. I love the grind that we have in that bass guitar. But maybe you think, you know what? It's kind of harsh sounding. Let's put Soothe on it or Smooth Operator or whatever your favorite deharshing plugin is. So let's see what ends up happening if we use something like this. It does sound a little bit more scooped. You're losing the pick attack on the bass guitar, which might be a good thing or a bad thing. And the bass is slowly becoming this amorphous thing that really doesn't have its own character to it. Let's listen to what happens in terms of our ability to hear the bass in the context of also the guitars. It's kind of starting to sound like the bass is just kind of disappearing and dissolving into the guitars. Maybe that's something you want, but also at the same time, we're losing the groove of the bass. We don't have any of the transient texture we get from that pick attack. Where you're going to get a lot of the groove is from that initial transient. Right, so we're losing all the high energy stuff that's going to help keep the bass present on smaller speakers. So something you could do is really focus on using this attack knob. So this is something that if I feel that I absolutely need some sort of high frequency resonance suppression, I'm always focusing on the attack setting. This is going to let some of that texture through that I was talking about. Right? A lispy bass that nobody likes. And then with the attack set to like 8, now we're getting some of that groove back. Maybe that could actually be useful. Something else you can do just to try to help you dial in the right settings on this is always listen in delta when you're unsure of what's happening, because you're going to hear the artifacts that you're removing from the bass signal. Okay, so if you're in the delta mode and you hear the sound of a good sounding bass, you're taking all the goodness out, right? So we want to just remove stuff that sounds crappy. That's all the pick attack. So selectivity being a little bit higher, it seems to be targeting the harshest sounds. Let's adjust this attack and see what happens, right? That's starting to sound like all of the attack on the bass. We don't want that, so we want to have the attack really high. Okay, that's sounding more like just bass guitar in general. And this is actually starting to sound like the ringy, gross stuff. So now that we've identified the worst sounding things in this bass guitar, we can then take the delta off and then back off on this and then try to find the spot where it feels a little bit smoother, but we're not losing the texture in the groove. So like right around here, I feel like is a good sweet spot where we still have pick attack, we still have a little bit of the natural human fingerprint in this track, but it's not turning it into a lispy bass. All right, where I hear harshness suppression the most is on vocals. And it drives me crazy, especially on bright pop vocals or like EDM style vocals. I can hear the effect of Soothe from people that are abusing this and not paying attention to the natural texture of a human voice. And I'm just going to jump through some presets and we'll see how it takes away from the feeling of the voice. Let's clean up a little vocal harshness. All night, clouds above, what am I thinking of? When we really bite in this, you can hear the effect immediately, especially since it's on a vocal bus. It feels like the tongues of all the singers just got twice as big, right? Find a way to clear my mind. Take this time and drive all night. We do not want that. We want the texture. The other thing I'm noticing is that the vocals go from being really spacious and three-dimensional, like the vocals have height to them. Once we start using this, they feel like they're starting to collapse, being pushed back in the mix and kind of getting tucked away, and they don't have their own sense of space anymore. I will find a way to clear my mind. Huge sound space right now. Take this time and drive all night. And it just feels like they're getting put into a box with a blanket over the top. You got to be so careful on vocals with this. If we want to use this on vocals, let's just dial it in quickly. We're going to start with one of my presets I've made. And if you are a YouTube subscriber to this YouTube channel, I will have a link to download this exact preset in the members section. So that's my thank you for all of you that are supporting me right now by joining the membership. All right. The most harshness in a vocal tends to lie around 5K for me, and it'll also pop in around 8 to 12K too. So we might want to use something like this to just to kind of help focus the detection circuit onto the harsh frequencies of the vocal. Okay, so I should probably explain what the heck this thing is. This is an EQ on Soothe, and a lot of these other deharshing plugins also have this, but this is going to basically add this EQ shape to the sound of the vocal so that when it gets processed, it will hit these frequencies first in the threshold setting. So think of this as like a sensitivity curve, okay? So if there's harshness that you think are around 12K, this is gonna make it more sensitive to those frequencies. So it's a really great way to kind of emphasize and de-emphasize areas of our vocal that we don't wanna mess with. So let's turn this up to max. Let's listen to the delta. And again, we're trying to find the setting where we're taking away the grossest parts of the vocal, okay? We want the screechy, eye-pokey kind of frequencies. All right, so let's try to dial in the worst sounding thing we can using this in delta mode. Here we go. See, again, with the attack fast, what we're doing is we're compromising the entire vocal. All that texture is going away. Okay, so let's really push this attack up. And I find that I won't use the attack less than about 6 ever because it starts to ruin the sound and the feel of a vocal. That's starting to sound nasty, right? That's sounding even nastier. All right, that to me is sounding pretty gross, okay? So that's all stuff we're going to be removing from the signal. So let's take it off at delta. Now let's leave the mix at 100. Let's adjust this depth knob until we find the spot where it just starts sounding like we're attenuating those harsh frequencies. Clouds above, what am I thinking of? So right here, I'm hearing the tongue of the lead vocalist getting a little bit fatter. The vocal image is starting to collapse lower in the mix. So this is where we're gonna now switch over to the mix knob and then make the final adjustments here. Gone a while, guess I'll move on. Not this time. I will find a way to clear my mind. Take this time and drive all night. That's sounding good to me. So it's just removing the smallest artifacts of the harshest part of the vocal without changing the texture. So important. All right, so let's do a little experiment here. I want to play the verse into the chorus without any of the resonance suppression, and then we'll switch between having it on. Okay, and we'll put it on the bass, we'll put it on the drum cymbals, and also the vocals. And I want you to hear the additive effect of all these processors and what they do to the final texture of the song. Not the way you'll find people stop the days when the days by the storm collide. Demons chasing close behind. They won't catch me, not this time. I will find a way to clear my mind. Take this time and drive all night. Clouds above, what am I thinking of? Gone a while, guess I'll move on. To me, it just makes the world of difference. The image of the song is taller, wider, more spacious without any of the resonance suppression. And then with it, it does feel softer, smoother, but in not necessarily like a good way. It feels like in a wet blanket kind of way. There isn't a really pronounced groove to it. Certainly, there is a groove, but listening to the version without any of this processing, to me, made me want to nod my head to the song. So I hope I was able to showcase some of the traps that people fall into all the time when they're using resonance suppression. These plugins can be a miracle worker on the right track if there's no other option to fixing a really ringy or harsh sound. And I think you should really reserve using them for just those circumstances. If you have Soothe or Silk vocals by Waves or Smooth Operator built in your template, try getting rid of it and start mixing using your ears, using volume as a way to adjust harshness. And if it's still poking through, then go to EQ. Those are the tried and true methods. They sound the most natural. And then if all else fails, then lean on these very niche tools. I think people are getting way too comfortable using these crazy powerful tools. If you captured a good performance initially, you're not going to want to do a whole lot to the vocal or the instrument. We'll start taking away some of that magic with every single plugin you start stacking on it. So let me know, do you use Soothe? Do you use Smooth Operator? Let me know in the comments below. And when was the last time you tried to not use a tool like that? If you've been using these tools and been a little heavy-handed or not messing with those attack knobs and just using the presets, I encourage you to take these plugins, get them off your mixes, and just see what you can do without using them. In fact, that's a challenge. I want you to try that and then come back here and let me know the results. If your mixes sound super harsh when you don't use these tools, then let me know that too. And if you aren't quite sure where those frequencies are that you should be removing from guitars, bass, vocals, or drums, I have a free rock and metal mixing cheat sheet in the description that you can download, and that has a bunch of go-to settings to help you find the harshness for all those instruments. I'm gonna go and upload my preset for Soothe to the members only section, so if you wanna support me and also grab that with a bunch of other awesome free stuff, all you have to do is join the membership. It's just a few bucks a month. There's also a vocal mixing masterclass in the members only section, so you can learn how to dial in pro-sounding vocals. And you can unlock that right now when you join the membership. My name is Bobby Balo. I'm the mixing master engineer at Raytop Productions, and I'll see you in the next video.